my fellow Americans.
He said they reached a deal to end the shutdown.
President Trump endorsed a short-term plan to reopen the government until February 15th.
I will make sure that all employees receive their back pay very quickly.
Everything else can be negotiated. That's all we wanted. That's all we've been asking for.
Our dedicated public servants should never, never have to go through this again.
Some of them didn't even have gas money.
It's about time.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Begnaud from the D.C. Bureau of CBS News. Thank you for joining us for our CBSN Special Voices of the Shutdown. What's next? After 35 days, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history is over. President Trump broke the stalemate with Democratic lawmakers today, this afternoon, in fact, agreeing to reopen the government for 3 weeks without any funding for a border wall. But at the White House on Friday, the president made it clear the government will shut down again without that funding.
So let me be very clear. We really have no choice but to build a powerful wall or steel barrier. If we don't get a fair deal from Congress, the government will either shut down on February 15th again, or I will use the powers afforded to me under the laws and the Constitution of the United States to address this emergency.
The end of this shutdown is welcome news for more than 800,000 federal employees who have missed 2 paychecks. Today, they were supposed to get the second one. In fact, we were with a lot of them in D.C. today as they stood in line to get food and found out the news that the president was going to reopen the government. Now, they will get back pay and their regular paychecks soon as well. But in the interim, some were forced to take desperate measures to make ends meet, depleting their savings, taking up side jobs, and relying on the kindness of strangers just to get by. Tonight, we'll share some of those stories with you. But our coverage is going to start on Capitol Hill with CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes.
The government may be reopening, but we could end up back in this same situation next month. And that is because this spending bill only funds the government for 3 weeks. And over that period of time, into mid-February, leaders from the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, will be sitting down to try to hash out a border security deal. That was one of the conditions laid out by the president in exchange for reopening the government. And he says that if they don't reach a deal, then he will be left with one of 2 choices, either to allow another government shutdown, let that funding lapse in mid-February, or to declare a national emergency at the border. What he has not said is whether or not that deal would have to include the nearly $6 billion in border wall funding he's been looking for. Democrats say that their opposition to wall funding hasn't changed, but that there are a lot of other areas of border security that both Democrats and Republicans agree need to be beefed up. So the question will be, will that be enough to satisfy this president who has been saying for years that the only way to ensure true border security is to build a big wall? David?
Nancy, thank you. Nancy, thank you. Let's go to our first voice, Kirsten Safakis, joining us on Skype. She is in Chicago. Kirsten works for the EPA. She has been working as a driver for a rideshare company, Via, in Chicago. Kirsten, you even wrote me a message and you said, I'm selling things on eBay. That's how bad it was before today. But let's start off with the hopeful positive news. What is your reaction to the president's announcement?
I'm very relieved. Hi, by the way. Nice to meet you. I'm very relieved. I actually told my husband we were down to the last bit in our savings account to pay our mortgage on February 1st. So I was like, okay, well, on February 2nd, we're going to have to evaluate our plan because we didn't really have a plan, past about a month. I don't think many Americans do, at least people my age. So I'm very relieved that we're not going to have to deal with whatever plan C, D, E, F would be because I don't know what it would be.
Kirsten, I was struck by what you also said in your message in that you said, I thought everyone in the news stories that I read was being dramatic. It can't be that bad, but it is that bad. How bad was it for you?
when it first started happening, I'm thinking, oh, everyone can get by for a couple days, and maybe that was ignorant of me. But then, as time went by, I mentioned to you, my husband and I, we had some emergency in our home, and we needed to get addressed. We needed to get it addressed right away because on the pipe first, and there was leaking and whatever. So we paid all this money to a contractor to get the work done. The contractor actually ended up taking our money and leaving, and not completing the job, not doing any of the work. So we have a big gaping hole in our ceiling, water damage, but no money to really fix it. And obviously our main concern is paying our mortgage, getting groceries, having gas, being safe and warm in our home. So for now, I mean, we've been looking at this like hole in our ceiling and just kind of laughing that it's just been such a crazy month that we've had to turn to. I mean, me, doing the side hustle, I don't mind it. It's fine. But when I think about all the educated, highly educated people that I work with, and there's people selling quilts on eBay and driving for different rideshare companies. Not only is it we're not able to support ourselves with that living, but it's also it got to the point where I went and got groceries for free the other day, and I felt a little actually guilty about it because I felt like I was taking something for free, and maybe I shouldn't have been. Maybe people who maybe needed it more than I did, but it got to a point where we needed it too. And I didn't actually think we were going to reach that place, but I think almost everyone I know is at that point.
Kirsten Safakis, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for telling your story.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You bet. Sylvia Sosa is an employee for the IRS Taxpayer Advocate Service. She joins me now on the phone from Milwaukee. Hello, Sylvia. I was struck by the message you wrote. You said, I literally cry anytime I have to call my creditors, as some require me to call every 2 weeks with a status. You think those phone calls are over now?
I'm hoping. I don't know. I know that we are to go back to work Monday. However, in another 3 weeks, am I going to have to make these phone calls again?
You also wrote, I'm struck by this. You said, I cry having to make decisions I shouldn't have to, such as canceling my daughter's doctor appointment just so I can have basic living needs.
Absolutely. I had my own doctor appointments. We had doctor appointments that I couldn't afford the copays. Paying the copays versus paying for food. Those were decisions that we had to make.
You've worked for the federal government for 11 years. You're a single mother. What branch of the government do you work for?
I work for the IRS.
What was your reaction, tax office? What was your reaction when the president made the announcement today?
I was happy when I first heard that the government was reopened. However, when he stated that in 3 weeks he could possibly shut it down again, has me worried.
What would you say to Mr. Trump if he were to be listening to this?
I would just say, think of your voters, think of your constituents, think of the people that are suffering, not just the federal employees, the contractors, the United States all around.
Sylvia, do you know when your paycheck is going to be deposited into your account? Have you been told that?
No, we have not been given any of that information.
And you're back to work Monday?
Back to work Monday.
Sylvia Sosa, it's going to be a better weekend than it has been for the last few weeks. Thanks for telling us your story.
Thank you.
You know, I spent the day here in Washington at a pop-up kitchen run by Chef Jose Andres. The chef has fed thousands of furloughed workers for free. We spoke with a Justice Department employee, Jessica Martinez, right as President Trump was speaking from the White House. In fact, she was in line about to walk in and get food, and she had her cell phone up to her ear, and she was listening to what the president said. And I walked over to her with a microphone to get her reaction as she heard him say, the shutdown is over. Tell me what your situation was before this. How bad was it getting for you?
We missed our second paycheck today. Our apartment building was not working with us for February's rent. I don't know if we'll make it now if they reopen. We might get paid in time. It's a lot. I can't even on the spot tell you, daycare, I was furloughed first for 2 or 3 weeks, staying home with the kids wasn't as much of a burden as when they called me into work without pay. And then how was I supposed to pay for childcare while I wasn't being paid and having to go into work? I mean, it's unfathomable how families have been continuing to come to work.
So
I didn't know how much longer it would last.
This for you means what?
That my family will be able to pay our bills and we'll be able to keep our homes and, be off the street and stop begging for food. I mean, we thank Chef Jose Andres for his help, but we're not used to this. We're not used to handouts, We're all here because we really need it.
Probably 2 hours before we were able to speak with Jessica, I spoke with a gentleman named Cleo. He didn't want to give us his last name. He works at the Commerce Department. He told us that he was hit less hard than some of his coworkers in the shutdown, says he has some rental properties that he gets income from, and he supports the president's demand for a border wall. I saw him eating. He was eating soup and didn't really want to talk, and I went up to him and I said, sir, we're doing this special and we want to bring diversity, not only Democrats but Republicans, and I know you support the border wall. Would you be willing to talk to us? And he said, yeah, because he said, I feel really strongly about it. His response in the interview was thoughtful, and we think you should hear it. Can you tell me your position on not only the wall, but the president's really refusal to back down unless he gets that?
I think it's necessary after so many years of delayed promises. Everybody has felt it. It's time it happens, that they need to build whatever they want to call it, a wall, a barrier. They need to control access to this country.
Is there a point at which, Cleo, you think this goes on too long?
Obviously, yeah.
What is that for you? But what is that for you?
For me, I'm willing to hold out for as long as it takes, but yet, finances may allow me to do so, but a lot of coworkers, other people, they don't have that backup support. So yeah, there's politics, there's economy, there's finances involved. Obviously mortgage payments, food, utilities.
Do you think you'd be singing a different tune if you weren't in the kind of financial shape that you are?
It's hard to say. I would like to think my underlying philosophies, my beliefs, have a lot to do with it. And like I said, they've delayed this for so long. It just needs to happen. We need to build that wall.
Coming up after the break, we will hear more from more government employees impacted by the partial government shutdown. This is Voices of the Shutdown. What's next? You're streaming CBSN. Stay with us.
I was a furloughed federal government employee with Homeland Security, so I had lost 2 paychecks and I was getting financially concerned. Right now, I'm not actually sure that I'm actually insured since I switched my healthcare provider at the end of the new year, and they said it would come into effect with my first paycheck in 2019, and we've yet to receive a paycheck in 2019.
Welcome back. The government shutdown affected many people's wallets, but it could have also affected their health. Furloughed federal workers could have lost their health insurance if they were unable to pay their premiums or co-pays. One pediatric center in New York provided free mental care to children of furloughed workers. And joining me now from that New York Pediatric Center is pediatric Dr. Nitin Gupta. Dr. Gupta, good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, evening. Thank you.
I have to tell you, I was inspired to hear your story. Randomly today, got a message from somebody who said this guy saw some of the stories that people were sending to you, felt inspired and compelled to do something, and so you started Doctors United for Good.
Yes, yes.
Tell me what that's about.
Well, actually, there's a lot of us doctors here in the United States that have been standing by quietly, and we haven't been able to do anything about this. So I actually read some of your stories, and I was moved by it. It actually hit home. My dad was a state employee, and we did experience some furloughs, and it was during the recession when my mom's hours were also cut, so money was tight. So it really hit home after reading some of your stories. So I just kind of wrote an angry post on social media, and I said, I'm not only going to provide free mental health care for children. I'm going to provide medical care for our children in my community, free of charge, no copays, no deductibles. If until the government gets started again, and it's up to them if they want to pay me back. And
so often, Doc, our personal experiences inspire what we do for other people, right? And I read in your note, your parents had to ask themselves if $20 for a copay to the doctor was an essential payment. That's how rough it was for your family.
Yes.
You're one of these concierge doctors, right? You take care of wealthy people. Nothing wrong with that.
Technically,
but what
I'm direct primary care, actually.
Direct primary care, okay.
Yeah.
But what you want to do now is no copays, no deductibles. I just want to make sure every child is healthy. That's what you wrote.
That's it.
Well, now the president's come out and said, okay, the government's going to open up. So what happens? Does this go away, or do you take this and advance it?
No, we are going to advance this. We have a number of other practices across the country that have also joined this movement. In 2017, they defunded the Children's Health Insurance Program. Sure, the government's been reopened, but for how long? We've been through this before. I just want to ensure health care for our kids.
Dr. Nitin Gupta, we're inspired by your choice to do something. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing what you want to do.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Joining us now on the phone from Vero Beach, Florida, is Sheila. She's requested not to use her last name. Sheila's an IRS employee who has worked for the federal government for 20 years. Sheila, what do you think of what the president said today?
I'm glad that we're going back to work, but I still have some concerns about being shut down again in 3 weeks.
What is your job with the federal government, specifically at the IRS? What do you do day to day?
I'm an auditor. I'm an agent.
Okay.
I do audits.
Okay. And when were you told to stay home?
From December 21st, from December.
Okay. So you haven't gone, you were not called in and told to work without pay?
No, our area does not handle that.
Okay. I was struck by your message. You said, I was denied food stamps, earned too much money, and haven't been approved for unemployment.
Yes, that is correct. When I applied for any government help, it was really hard and it added to the stress that I was already going through.
Before today, Sheila, how dire had things gotten?
It's gotten to the point that, unfortunately, I am an example of a paycheck to paycheck kind of person. Unfortunately, I'm a single income household. So I actually was able to make some ends meet because I did not pay my mortgage. I had to choose between paying my mortgage and making big bills in order to have food, pay for my car insurance. I have gas money. I have family and friends that kind of stepped up and gave me gift cards for, supermarket and gave me some cash for me to have some money.
I wonder what you'd say to people, Sheila. I've heard from a couple of folks who've said, they should have planned better. They should have had an emergency savings account. What would you say to those people?
I mean, unfortunately, not everyone has that economic ability to do that. I just bought my home a year ago, so a lot of those savings that I had, I used for the purchase of my home. Like I said, I'm a single income household mother. I have 2 kids that I've, raised, and in order to give them a quality standard of life, I have not been able to save up like other people can.
Have you been told when you're supposed to report back to work?
Officially, no. I mean, we're assuming with today's announcement that, our managers are going to get notice. But as of right now, we still have not gotten the official notice that we have to report on Monday.
And what about your paycheck? You're owed 2. Do you know when that's going to be deposited?
I don't know. I hope it is fast. I believe, if my memory is correct, last time we had the shutdown, I think it took over 2 weeks to get that payment. So even though we're going back to work, we're still without uncertainty of when we're going to get that money paid. So it could be hopefully next week, or it could take 2 to 3 weeks.
I was struck, really, in every message I've gotten from people, Sheila, in that you didn't have anything bad to say about a politician, whether it was a Democrat or Republican, the president. You really stuck to just telling your personal story. Was that on purpose, or were you just avoiding delving into politics?
I think at this point it's affected everyone, no matter what political affiliation they have. And to me, I was just not suffering for me, but I would say that 90% of my friends work in the federal government. I have a 20-year service, so I have friends from Puerto Rico and Orlando and where I am now. So I was seeing their struggles and their pain, and it kind of made it even worse because I know some of them were even going through harder times than I was. So I think my story, what I want to get across is like people did not understand the emotional toll this whole process took.
What would you tell the president if you were given the chance to look him in the face and tell him your story?
I mean, basically, we should not be held hostage. That's how I felt, for political reasons, no matter what party you're coming from.
Sheila, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for caring and taking time to hear our stories.
You are most welcome. Sergio Tanaco is a Border Patrol agent. He joins us now from McAllen, Texas. Sergio, full disclosure, I want to let people know how I met you. I was down on the border covering the story of illegal immigration, and that's where I met you. You have a hell of a story yourself of coming to this country, and you sent me a message of your shutdown story, because you were working for free, essentially. Before today, let's back up, right? So what was it like before the president came out and said, here's some hope, we're going to reopen the government? What has it been like for you and your family since the shutdown started?
It's been, we've been stretched thin, David. I won't lie and I won't deny that. But we've been okay. I can't say I've been listening to some of the stories, and I can't say that me or the rest of my family were in those situations. We have been okay. When we stretched thin, yes. Did we have to cut back on certain expenses? Yes, we did. But it's just a matter of, at least for me and for my situation, my family situation, we just had to cut back on certain things and allow what we did have be enough and pull us through this finish line.
Would you consider yourself to be a Republican?
Yes, I would.
What is your feeling on how things have been handled? And the reason I ask that is, and I want to get political, but you have the special lane of being a law enforcement officer, right? And you're a law enforcement officer in that area that the president is essentially shutting down the government over, is that wall. And you work right there in the Rio Grande Valley, where the Department of Homeland Security announced just 48 hours ago that there's been an uptick in people crossing the border illegally. What is the truth that you know that we need to know tonight about what's happening along the border?
David, as you said earlier, you and I both met while you were covering a story regarding family units and unaccompanied children some months back, actually almost a year ago. And you saw it for yourself. You saw the amount of family units and unaccompanied children coming through, which makes our humanitarian part of the mission. But we also have a law enforcement mission, which is to deter all those criminal aliens such as MS-13 gang members and murderers or whatnot. So we have two facets to our mission: the humanitarian side, which is the family units and unaccompanied children, which is what you saw when we met. And I mean, you were able to see firsthand how we treat these immigrants when they cross our border. We don't mistreat them. We treat them as though they were our own kids. We give them our water. We give them our food. I mean, you were there. And for the other side, for the law enforcement side, we do need this wall. I mean, we just need a barrier to be able to hold them, deny and impede, and give us enough time for us to react to the traffic coming our way and be able to apprehend them.
But Sergio, as you well know, parts of the border, even in the RGV, already have a wall. In fact, correct. I went to one area of the RGV where you had roughly 50 to 60 Border Patrol officers at a legal port of entry, and I watched a coyote smuggle 2 people across the Rio Grande River, really under the nose of law enforcement, and come on to the other side. So, with all due respect, sort of to play the devil's advocate, with a border that already exists and the problems you have in the RGV, is more of a border the real solution?
Yes, it is. And it's a system. I don't want to say that it's just a barrier, David. I'm sure that we briefed you when you were here. I don't remember correctly, but it's a system. It's the barrier itself, It's roads along the river, because sometimes we can be right at the river's edge, you saw it yourself, but because of the brush to both sides, you cannot traverse or travel laterally along that river to be able to intercept that traffic. And so we need roads, we need the infrastructure that comes with that barrier, and then we also need technology and more boots on the ground. All of it together, it's a wall system per se that would help us in our mission.
Sergio, what would you tell the president tonight?
I would say stay strong. Stay strong.
Sergio Tinoco, thank you for your time. Thank you for telling us your
David.
story.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we will hear more from government employees impacted by the partial government shutdown. You are still watching Voices of the Shutdown. What is next? We are streaming live from the CBS News Bureau in our nation's capital. Stay with us.
I haven't received a paycheck in over a month now. So luckily I'm banking on some savings that I had before the shutdown. And I live with my brother in Arlington. We actually bought a condo about 6 months ago. So a mortgage, those are, anyone my age is also dealing with student loans. And so those, the bills keep coming.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government.
President Trump relented today with little to show for his month-long fight.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Within hours, Congress voted to fund the government through mid-February and issue back pay to hundreds of thousands of furloughed employees.
In fairness, Mr. President, this never should have happened.
Just yesterday, the president was vowing not to cave.
We have to have border security. We have to have a wall in order to have border security. You cannot have border security without a wall.
But today, a sick out by unpaid air traffic controllers led to scattered ground stops. At New York's LaGuardia, 500 flights were delayed. Passengers trapped on board for hours.
It's been a little frustrating.
By early afternoon, the White House announced a deal as GOP leaders looked for a silver lining.
As I said, I'm having to show up at places like this and get free items. I've never had to do this in my life, so yeah. Yes, I actually had spoken with a coworker who was going around to our coworker's desk collecting change so that she could buy noodles for her family. And, I don't have a story like that, but if this goes on much longer, I don't know. That may be my story in a couple of weeks.
It is the bottom of the hour, time for the top of the news. As we have been reporting, President Trump and Congress have reached an agreement to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. The president has reopened the government on day 35 without any border wall funding. An estimated 800,000 workers missed a second paycheck today. CBS News correspondent Nancy Cordes explains what's going to happen next.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government.
President Trump relented today with little to show for his month-long fight.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Within hours, Congress voted to fund the government through mid-February and issue back pay to hundreds of thousands of furloughed employees.
In fairness, Mr. President, this never should have happened.
Just yesterday, the president was vowing not to cave.
We have to have border security. We have to have a wall in order to have border security. You cannot have border security without a wall.
But today, a sick out by unpaid air traffic controllers led to scattered ground stops. At New York's LaGuardia, 500 flights were delayed. Passengers trapped on board for hours.
It's been a little frustrating.
By early afternoon, the White House announced a deal as GOP leaders looked for a silver lining.
I think when history writes about it, it'll show a president that wanted to find common ground.
Federal workers who missed a second paycheck today may have to wait a few days to get what they're owed. And legions of federal contractors will get no reimbursement.
5 weeks. Think of the suffering, the uncertainty, the pain.
Securing billions for a border wall has been a presidential priority for 2 years. How much of all of this do you think is about the new power dynamic and his desire to show you who's really in charge?
I don't want to make any characterizations of the president's motivation. You'll have to ask him.
Speaker Pelosi's Senate counterpart was less reluctant to weigh in.
No one should ever underestimate the Speaker, as Donald Trump has learned.
Mr. Trump did extract one promise. Congressional leaders will now spend the next 3 weeks negotiating a border security package, with consequences if they fail.
If we don't get a fair deal from Congress, the government will either shut down on February 15th again, or I will use the powers afforded to me under the laws and the Constitution of the United States to address this emergency.
That was Nancy Cordes reporting. I want to bring in Sigrid Lane. She joins us now from Woodbridge, Virginia. She's a paralegal specialist for the Justice Department, and her story was first featured on CBS This Morning. Our colleague Ed O'Keefe told her story. And Sigrid, I was struck by the fact that at the time Ed interviewed you, you said you had less than $2 in your bank account.
That's correct. I had $1.06 in my account that morning.
I'm looking now, my producers just gave me, there was a GoFundMe page started to help you. The goal was $1,000, and as of right now, there's $11,729 in that GoFundMe account.
I'm still shocked. I can't believe it because I wasn't asking for donations, and I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of support that I have received from people.
Who started the account for you? Was it you or a friend?
I started it myself because people just kept contacting me asking how they could help and how they could donate.
Tell me your experience. There was one part of the interview where you said to Ed, was it your battery in your car that went out and you thought about whether or not you could afford to change it?
The day before, I went out to start my car, and because the temperatures had been so cold in the area, my battery was dead. But my first thought was, I can't afford a tow truck to come out and help jumpstart my car.
What did you think today when the president walked out of the West Wing there and gave those remarks essentially saying, it's over. You can go back to work. Don't know how long, but you can go back to work and we'll pay you.
Well, I will be excited to receive the back pay, but I'm still concerned that it's only for 3 weeks.
What would you say to the president?
I would say to the president, please extend it for longer than 3 weeks, and please let us get our paychecks as soon as possible.
A lot has been made, Sigrid, from people who have watched this and said, you know, listen, this is why you should have a nest egg. This is why you have a reserve. This is, you know, this is not the first government shutdown we've had. It happened under President Obama. Now it's happening under Mr. Trump, albeit this was the longest one. But what do you say to folks who sort of say, hey, this is the position you find yourself in if you don't save money?
And I've heard that. But for people like me who are single and you live paycheck to paycheck, this always affects me in this way because I was affected the last time we had a government shutdown.
Chef Jose Andres,
Steve. I had to apply for a loan that time, and I had to apply for a loan this time.
You did, and you ended up getting the loan?
I did, but it's still not enough.
Did you go and accept the free food from places like World Central Kitchen and Chef Jose Andres?
I accepted food from the local food banks. I live in Woodbridge, Virginia, and there aren't very many here in Virginia. It appears that all of the food banks and all of the help that's being offered is in D.C. or Maryland.
What was the toughest part for you over the last 3 or so weeks? What was the lowest point, the most humiliating point?
I guess having to actually go to the food bank and ask for food.
Is there a lesson going forward? Because I don't get the sense that shutdowns are over, right? I don't get the sense that this was the last one. But is there a lesson for you?
Yes, the lesson going forward for me is to have a plan B.
And what is it?
To start saving money and to prepare for the next federal government shutdown.
Sigrid Lane, you have a heck of a way of telling your story in a very compelling way. And we're all better for listening to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, families came together to support each other during the government shutdown. Sigrid talked about it. Jacqueline Quinn from our New Orleans affiliate WWL spoke with a mother of 5 who struggled to make ends meet while her husband was serving in the U.S. Coast Guard.
I've been able to get some baby food.
Diana Pitts is just one of the moms who's recently picked up some essentials from a food pantry in Belle Chase set up for Coast Guard families.
There's a lot of people that, don't like to go to food pantries.
Pitts doesn't like it either, but it helps her family get through the ongoing partial government shutdown.
And it's even harder when your spouses are gone, because they're not here to at least calm your nerves and help you.
She tells us her husband, a member of the U.S. Coast Guard, is currently deployed in Texas. Meanwhile, at home in Belle Chase, she's trying to balance work and study for nursing school with 5 kids.
We have not gotten paid at all, and I think the most stressful part is just pushing our bills back. Some companies are understanding, some companies are not understanding.
Whereas the other military branches are funded through the Department of Defense, the Coast Guard operates under the Department of Homeland Security. Therefore, Pitts points out her husband is risking his life every day at work with no paycheck.
When my husband's deployed, my oldest just steps into Big Brother awesome Superman mode.
It's been hard on her children too, but Pitt says Coast Guard families are banding together, which helps. However, she thinks it's still heartbreaking.
Because a lot of us, are living off of our savings, and some of us don't have a savings.
Once the shutdown ends, Pitts hopes her husband will be among the 800,000 federal workers getting their back pay immediately.
But then again, it's really hard because a lot of people had to push back their bills.
And she hopes to avoid some potential late fees, but the end is still nowhere in sight. In Belle Chase, Jacqueline Quinn, Eyewitness News.
Here's the catch with the Coast Guard. They actually are under the Department of Homeland Security, so that's why they were able to be furloughed in this case, not paid. And I heard from so many, not only Coast Guardsmen and women, but their spouses in places like Puerto Rico, Belle Chase, California, and Baltimore. Buffy is joining us now by Skype, doesn't want us to use her last name. She is the wife of a Coast Guardsman. Her husband has been an active duty Guardsman for 21 years. He continued to work during the shutdown, and Buffy has taken odd jobs so she can help him make ends meet. Good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, David.
Tell me your story.
Well, we really live a very comfortable life. My husband loves being in the Coast Guard. I love him being in the Coast Guard. And this really just threw a wrench in everything for us. It was incredibly frustrating and demoralizing that he was continuing to go to work each day and not get paid.
People may not realize this, but I actually heard from an attorney today who was advising government workers that if they were to boycott and say, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to go to work, it actually could go against them and prevent them from ever being hired as a federal worker again, right? There's a law against it, a rule, so to speak, and government workers were being advised of that. I don't need to tell you this, you knew this, but the Coast Guard has been incredible in many things around the country. But most recently in Puerto Rico, with the work that they did after Hurricane Maria. I wonder what your husband told you as to why he wanted to continue to go to work every day.
Well, he took an oath, and he loves being a Coast Guardsman, and he loves working for the Coast Guard. And we just really were trying to just stay strong and try and keep our morale up. And thankfully, we have an incredibly strong marriage. I worry about some people who maybe it's a little rockier, and something like this is very stressful. Even in the best circumstances, it's very stressful to not know how long your money's going to last, when you're going to get paid. That uncertainty is just really hard on both of our psyches. And for me, the main worry was, okay, we're okay right now. What if something happens to the car? What if the car's in an accident? What if some unexpected expense comes up that normally we could factor into our budget? But right now we're trying to save everything to go towards not knowing how long the money was going to last us.
Hope came about 2 p.m. Eastern Friday afternoon when the president walked out in the Rose Garden and made that announcement. What was your reaction?
Complete relief. Absolute and utter relief. I have used the USO and the Maryland Food Bank did band together, and we're giving bags of food for Coast Guard families, and I was incredibly grateful for that. It just really gave us a lot more ease of mind knowing that that we had that to lean on. But it's also hard to, because that's definitely something that we've never had to do. But once we heard that word today, absolute relief, yes.
What was the point at which it changed for you? You know, you wrote in your message to me, you said, I'm just trying to shield my younger kids from the situation. Where did you start to hit some breaking points along the way? How long ago was that?
I would say a couple of weeks ago, when it really just no one was talking to each other, and it really seemed like this could go on indefinitely. And I knew that we would probably be okay until the 1st, but then I heard some talk about the chief of staff saying he was looking at high impact on different agencies if this went through April. And it scared, that really scared me because I was like, I don't know if we can do this through April. I mean, we have not taken out a loan. We really didn't want to go into that extra debt, even though he will eventually get paid. That was something that we want to do. We really wanted to try and stick it out. But yes, we've really tried to keep things normal here, have all the things that the kids want, you know, so that it doesn't make sense to them. They know their dad goes to work. He has a job, and it doesn't make any sense that he wouldn't get paid.
Has your husband been told when the checks might be deposited?
We're hoping that everything will maybe come all together for the 1st. So that's the latest I've heard, but I'm not exactly sure.
Look, the Coast Guard Commandant put out a Twitter video. You probably saw this, right? 48, 72 hours ago. And he was pretty bold and, I guess, professionally blistering in basically saying this is wrong. What did your husband think when the big boss came out with that?
Well, I mean, he really focus as a chief is really to try and keep the guys that he works with and everyone around him in good spirits. He really has a very positive attitude. So even through all of it, and he doesn't get political at all, but he really just tries to keep a positive attitude toward it and just hope that it was going to work itself out eventually.
Buffy, so many people said, tell a story of the Coast Guard. Thank you for being that person to tell it to us.
My pleasure.
We are going to take a quick break, but coming up, an interview with Chef Jose Andres. You are streaming CBSN, always on. We're back in a moment.
I think it's a good thing. You know, it's about time that we start working again, even if it's just 3 weeks. The 3 weeks is a potential for both sides to come to an agreement that eventually needs to get done. So 3 weeks is better than no weeks at all.
We've been working for over 35 days now, and having to show up and not get paid and keep a civil mind. So I'll be very happy.
That lady walked into a line to get free food right as the president said, we've got a deal. And by the way, the remarks were made just feet. So the president made his remarks about 8 blocks from the place where we were standing in that food line. The food line was set up by Chef Jose Andres. You'll hear more from him in a moment. But furloughed employees were lining up for a food bank when they learned that the government shutdown would be ending. I spoke with some of them who were in line, a lot of them watching the president talk on his phone, picking up their bags to go when they got word. As the president was talking, people were in line, picking up their bags to leave. These ladies had sat down and started eating and were actually watching the president's address on their cell phone. Everyone seemed happy to hear the news, but they were cautiously optimistic.
I'd say it's about time. I hope that it is a little more sustainable than 3 weeks, so we're not going through this again in 3 weeks.
Jessica Martinez was waiting to get her food. She's been struggling to cover child care costs while working without pay at the Department of Justice. This for you means what?
That my family will be able to pay our bills and we'll be able to keep our homes and, be off the street and stop begging for food.
This had been the 4th government shutdown since 2013, but the longest in U.S. history. And many of the 800,000 furloughed federal workers endured more than a month without pay.
But I'm excited that the government will be reopening. I think it's about time.
David Dusing is furloughed from the Department of Homeland Security.
I haven't gone to see any doctor just because I'm sort of in limbo right now with my health insurance.
According to a CBS News poll, 1 in 5 Americans report being affected by cutbacks triggered by the partial shutdown. Federal workers like this furloughed Coast Guard member in Connecticut have been volunteering to help others who are in the same boat.
we all help each other out, and it's been absolutely amazing to be able to help each other out. But I get to go back to work on Monday. I can't wait.
You know, in the spirit of helping one another, as they continue to hand out food here tonight in D.C., we've heard from dozens of government employees telling us their personal shutdown stories through social media. And what we did was we then shared it on social media, and the response has been overwhelming. One man offered to help pay for the funeral cost of a government employee's relative. Somebody else said, I want to buy a new tire for that government employee's car. The worst of the last 3 weeks has brought out some of the best in people. It's really been inspiring to see. That was the story we reported for the CBS Evening News Friday night. You know, the government shutdown has had ripple effects across the country, in many ways big and small. Elba is a 17-year non-essential IRS employee. She had to switch her children's schools because she could no longer afford the transportation for them. Elba joins us now by phone from Atlanta, Georgia. Good evening, Elba.
Good evening.
How do you feel knowing what the president announced today?
Cautious, because we seem to be still putting a Band-Aid on something that maybe in 3 weeks they'll tear back off us.
You know, it's interesting. I was just talking with my producer a short time ago in the commercial break, and he said, David, we're living in a day and age where government workers are having to plan for the next shutdown. I mean, it seems that they happen frequently enough to where you got to kind of build in a little savings just to get ready for the next shutdown.
Try to, but when you live from paycheck to paycheck, sometimes that's not possible.
So you wrote in a quite compelling note to me. You said, I've worked for the government 17 years, single mom of 2. I'm down to $200 in my bank account, and I've not gone to a food bank yet. Did you end up going to that food bank?
I actually went yesterday to Hosea Feed the Hungry.
Oh, you did? You went to one of Jose Andres' places?
No, Hosea Feed the Hungry.
Oh, I see. Where is that?
It's a local food bank that we have here.
What type of items were you able to get?
They gave us juice, chili, donuts for the kids, and some other canned goods.
Is there a sense of pride that gets shattered through all this? Do you know, some workers, Elba, today told me they felt kind of humiliated walking through the line, kind of embarrassed. Did you feel that?
Yes, I did. We had the local news channel there, and I put a hat on and was trying to make sure that I wasn't put on camera.
Yeah. Well, and I know you didn't want your picture shown tonight. We won't use your last name. We totally respect your privacy, but I really appreciate you being willing to tell your story. You also wrote to me and you said, it's horrible to see how cruel people are about us needing help when we are often the ones helping. What did you mean?
They often do fundraisers for local food banks. We bring food in our local offices. We bring in school supplies for the children. We collected water for hurricanes. I am Puerto Rican, and I helped out in a local restaurant and was collecting water and goods to send to Puerto Rico. So when I'm reading these comments on Twitter and Facebook and other social programs saying, oh, why didn't they prepare and why didn't they do this? I don't think people realize how much we do. We just aren't shining our light on ourselves as to how much the federal government, the employees are helping others.
Tell me why you had to pull your kids out of school.
My children are transported an hour away. The school, it's a public school, but it was smaller, more intimate. My son his class over there was only 64 eighth graders, and where I had to bring him back home, there's over 300 students, and he was overwhelmed because this is the first time he's had to go to that school. He's like, oh my God, Mom, there's so many kids.
Do you know when you're going to get your next paychecks, the 2 that you haven't gotten yet?
No, I'm hoping it should be within days of us returning back to work.
Well, listen, you don't have to convince me. By the way, I want to end with this. You told my producer you're an independent voter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What would you tell the president if you were to be able to get some FaceTime with him tonight?
think about all the employees that you affected. You not only affected the 800,000 that were working for you, but you also affected the other people's lives. It trickled down to other people's lives.
Elba?
Not all of us are rich, and not all of us can easily be without pay.
Elba, thanks for telling your story.
Thank you, David.
Have a wonderful weekend. I caught up earlier with Chef Jose Andres at his pop-up kitchen here in the nation's capital. That was just one of many locations throughout the country where his organization, World Central Kitchen, is feeding workers impacted by the shutdown. Here's some of what he had to tell us.
We will be here for the people as far as the people need our help. As soon as they get their first paycheck, probably we should be slowly closing down. Why? Because we are an NGO for emergencies. We shouldn't be open in Washington, D.C.
Well,
so what I can tell you is that if this arrives to a happy conclusion and we reopen the government, what we're going to do is keep a few more days until people go back to their normal lives. If they shut down the government again, I can tell you we will reopen again.
It's sobering to hear you say, you know, we operate only in emergencies, because I feel like ever since Puerto Rico, where you and I first met, I feel like you've constantly been serving food for the last year and a half.
Well, we've been serving food for many more years before that. What happened the last year and a half has been a lot of events happening that I have a feeling like we have to be there. World Central Kitchen has to be there. And it's not me, as you see. We have thousands of volunteers, David, across the country. Today, I can claim we are in 20 states, plus Puerto Rico, plus Washington, D.C. We already have officially 150 restaurants, and I hope by the end of today I can claim a much bigger number.
So the chef's got somebody working for him.
You know, our aim with this special was to make sure that we told people, we hear you, and what you have to say matters. We thank you for listening, and we hope it was worth your time. I'm David Begnaud on behalf of our team here in the nation's capital. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.